Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Ready Steady Play rules video, where today we are going to be looking at Cthulhu Death May Die from Cool Mini or Not. Cthulhu Death May Die is a fully cooperative game where you play as a group of investigators trying to stop an ancient and dreadful evil from devouring the world. It's designed by Eric Lang and Rob Davio, and the way it works is that you select one ancient evil cosmic entity, combine it with one episode that comes in the box, which represents like a scenario, and there are 6 of those, and when you combine these two things, then you get the scenario that you're going to be playing out. It takes about 90 minutes to 2 hours to play, but you might die sooner than that. In this video, we're going to look at the core set box, we're going to look at what's in the box, and we're going to look at how to set up a scenario using an episode and an elder god. We're going to look at how to set that up, we're going to look at how to play it, and there will be minor spoilers for episode 1 of the 6 episodes, but it's nothing that you wouldn't learn if you were setting up the game for yourself at home, so don't worry about that. As usual, all of the sections of this video are in the description below if you want to know what we cover and how it's laid out, and you can use that to find something specific you might be looking for. So, without further ado, let's open up this box and find out what the components look like. So we've got one rulebook, 10 investigator character sheets, we've got 17 double-sided room tiles, and this storyboard as well. We've got this progress token here. We've got 3 of these black standard dice and 5 of these bonus dice. We've got the Cthulhu Evil God box, and we've got the Haster box as well. These are the 2 ancient evils you're going to find in the core set. And then we've got the 6 episode boxes here, with art by Adrian Smith. We've got a player spawn token. And here we've got a bunch of trays containing figures and tokens and things. So there are the 10 player characters right there in the top of the box, which includes Rasputin. Then we've got player color character rings here in 5 player colors. And we've got some nasty looking tentacles here for the different player colors. For all the different player colors in here, you're going to use these to track things on your player boards. As you can see down below, we've got a bunch more tokens, which includes a tunnel, which will be set up on certain boards, staircase as well, tons of wound tokens here, fire tokens for when fires start and you're set on fire. These are some skill tokens here. Certain things you pick up in the game will give you different skills, and these represent those skills. These are portals to the netherworld, which function as monster spawn points. We've got some hunting horrors here. I think these are the hunting horrors. I think these are called Bayaki. They're really nasty looking. We've got a little tray here that's showing us all of the different heroes and the way they're laid out in the box. And then on the bottom here, what we've got are 10 cultists. And we've got 5 deep ones. And 5 ghouls. In the final tray here, we've got some more nasty monsters. We've got this Shoggoth. Yep, that's... don't want to wind up in there. I believe this is called a Chthonian. And at the bottom here, we've got 2 fire vampires. So here we've got the Cthulhu box, and inside we've got 8 Mythos cards here. And we've got a number of stages as well, which the boss is going to progress through as we fight him. So you can see here all of these different stages that must be defeated. And at the back here, a minion card as well. These give the rules. All Elder Gods have cultists, and these give the rules for this specific Elder Gods cultists. And they all have a special minion as well that comes in the box with them. And this gives the rules for that special minion. So you can see here, Cthulhu... oh, and here are some special Cthulhu tokens, which will be explained by the rules on the Elder Ones card. So if they need specific tokens, those will be in the box as well. And then here you can see we've got the Cthulhu Mini and his Star Spawn. So here we've got the Haster Elder God box. And you can see that Hastur comes with Hastur's own set of Mythos cards. His own set of stages here, which I'm deliberately trying not to reveal. And at the back, a minion card. So Hastur's minions are, in fact, these Hastur disciples. And there are the rules for Hastur's minion cultists as well. If we look in the box, there are some yellow tokens that Hastur uses. And then here in the box, we've got Hastur's 4 disciples with Tommy guns. And of course, Hastur themselves. Yeah, another thing. In fact, I think I'd like to fight this even less than Cthulhu. So we have here the 6 episode boxes. Each one is a different scenario. And so there's 12 potential combinations here just in the core set, the 6 episodes, plus the 2 Elder Gods. And on the back of each one, you'll find the contents of the box. But don't open these up and mix them up. You'll only use these tokens in this specific scenario. And we've also got these Insanity cards here. These represent all different kinds of insanities your characters might have in the game. So, that's it for the contents in the core set of the box. What I'm going to do now is set up a 2-player game with Episode 1, Blasphemous Alchemy, and Cthulhu as the Elder God. So, onwards to setup. So we're going to be setting up a 2-player game of Cthulhu Death May Die, and we're going to be setting it up with Season 1, Episode 1, and Cthulhu as the Elder God. But you can choose any episode from the box that you want to play, and they all represent different kinds of scenarios that you might go through, and you can choose either of the 2 Elder Gods that come in the box to play with it. If you have any of the expansion content, episodes, or Elder Gods, it's all fully interchangeable, so you can pick any Elder God out of all of the potential ones out there, and any episode as well to go with it. We can see here on the back of these boxes all of the different components that are going to come in the boxes, which we've just looked at. And we had a look at the components in the Cthulhu box in the rundown earlier. In this particular setup, we will be setting up this stuff here. Some of this is universal. So all of the episodes have an episode card, a monsters card, 8 Mythos cards, and 15 discovery cards, although there may be a different number here. These tokens are unique to this episode, and different episodes may have different special components in them. So in order to begin setting up, we're going to have to open up the Episode 1 box and take out all of the stuff inside. So here you can see all the stuff from the back of the box. We've got the discovery cards, we've got the Mythos cards, we've got the episode card, which is what we're going to need here for setup. We've got the minions card here, which features the episode on the back. And we've got the alchemy token, or the lab tokens, 5 lab tokens here as well. This comes with extra fire tokens because of the fire vampire featured in the episode. So we're going to take the episode card here, and here's some flavor text on it. That's going to tell you what's going on, but you don't need to worry about all that now. We'll look at that later in gameplay. What we're looking at specifically is the back of the card, which shows the setup for the game. So you'll see here that we've got 2 levels, and we're going to construct these boards out of those 17 area tiles that we looked at earlier. And once we're done constructing the boards, we're going to put out all of the tokens as they're laid out here. So what I'm going to do is set this up right now. So I'm now finished setting up the board according to the back of the episode card. Let's take a look. So the first thing you can do when you're setting up any episode is get out all 10 of the red cultists. Every single scenario uses all 10 red cultists. Then find the models in the box that correspond to the enemies on this episode card here. You'll need all of the models for both enemies, and because the enemies are component limited, just take them all out and put any that don't start on the game board nearby. I'm sure they'll be jumping out at you later. Then we're going to set up the game according to the back of this sheet here. And what I've done is I've laid out the first board here and the second area here. And as you can see, I've populated the rooms as laid out here. So we've got the player start token over here at the top of the map. We've got 2 cultists here. We've got cultists in the 3 rooms here and here and here, as well as fire tokens, the lab tokens as well, and these different colored portals as well, which are spawn points for enemies. The Baya key appears here with fire and a lab token as well. Now this green thing here is a staircase, and that allows you to travel to this second board over here, where we've laid out the fire vampire, another cultist, and another spawn point, as well as fire and lab tokens. Once all that's done, we can open up the Elder God and set up our storyboard. So this is the sort of the episode setup here for the scenario. Now we're going to set up the storyboard here, which is going to bring together the episode with our Elder God box over there. And so what we're going to do on this is we're going to use it to track progress, and we're going to use it to track all the different cards from the different sets. So now that we're done setting up the stuff on the back of this card, we can just flip over the episode card here and put it down at the top here. This has important information on it that we'll need during the course of the game. We're going to take the stats for the monsters in this game and just put them down here in this space here. Now we need the Elder One and the Elder One's minions. So we'll go into this box here, find our Elder God and their minion cards and put those out. And you'll set the Elder One's Mythos cards to one side for now. We'll need those in a second. But here's our Elder One minions card. This tells us how cultists behave in this game and also the rules for the Star Spawn, Cthulhu's unique minion. And then Cthulhu's different stage cards here. And they'll go with stage 1 on the top right here. Cthulhu also has these Riley tokens, which we'll just put nearby because we'll need to access those during the course of the game. The Elder God model itself will be placed here on the summoning track, and we'll just put the Star Spawn somewhere nearby where we can grab it when it appears. Put the progress marker somewhere near the storyboard where you can grab it later. Now we're going to take the deck of Mythos cards from the episode, the deck of Mythos cards from the Elder God, and combine them. So here we've got the ones from Blasphemous Alchemy, and here we've got the ones from Cthulhu. We're just going to give these 16 cards a shuffle to form a complete deck, and then we're going to set this nearby the game board. Well, we're going to give this to the starting player once we've chosen a starting player. You can also just give these discovery cards a shuffle as well and put them somewhere nearby also. Just take out the wound tokens and put them somewhere close by where everyone can reach them. Next, each player is going to choose a character from the set of 10 that come in the game, and each character sheet has some information and flavor text on one side, and stats and trackers on the other side. So I'm going to set up a 2-player game, which means I'll be picking 2 characters, but if you're playing the game solo, you just follow this exact process, but play 2 characters instead of 1. So why don't I take Ahmed Yassin and Elizabeth Ives, who's from London, England. We'll put the rest of these sheets back in the box because we don't need them in this game. We'll get out the pertinent minis for these characters. Each player is going to pick a color and get 6 tentacles in the matching colors. And then we're just going to set these up. So we're going to stick the ring onto our character here like this. We're going to put the 6 tentacles out. One here at the start of the Sanity track. One here on the first space of each skill. And then we'll put one here on the start of the Stress track. And one here on the start of the Wounds track. Finally, each player is going to get an Insanity card, so we're going to give this a shuffle and deal 1 card to each player. So we've got Recurring Trauma for Ahmed, and we've got Masochism for Elizabeth. The last thing to do is take our 2 character miniatures here, put them on the player's starting location here on the board, and then we're going to take the Mythos deck and give that to the player who's starting the game. We'll say it's Elizabeth, but you can choose in any means you see fit. And then we're ready to start playing the game. So we've set up Cthulhu Death May Die. We've got episode 1 here set up from season 1 with Cthulhu as the Elder God. So the cultists are engaged in a ritual, summoning an Elder God. Every scenario contains a ritual that must be disrupted, but the way in which that ritual is taking place and the manner in which it's disrupted is unique to each episode. But the way in which we win and lose the episode is always the same. There are 3 ways to lose and just 1 way to win. The Elder God will eventually appear on the board. It is possible to lose before the Elder God appears on the board, but if we want to win, the Elder God will appear somewhere on the board. When that happens, this progress marker will be moved onto the summoning track. If the progress marker ever reaches the end of the summoning track, the Elder God has achieved their full powerful manifestation and devours the world, and we lose. Furthermore, once the Elder God has appeared on the board, if every player is killed or driven insane, we lose the game. Before the Elder God appears on the board, if any one player dies or is driven insane, the players also lose. So there is some player elimination, but only after the Elder God is summoned. The only way for us to win is for the Elder God to be summoned, and then we destroy it. And we can only destroy it by disrupting the ritual. The ritual is keeping it protected until it's powerful enough to consume the whole world. So we need to disrupt that ritual. And we only have a limited time in which to do it. So before we get stuck into the nitty-gritty of how the game works and everything else, let's just take a quick look at this episode card, because you're going to need this for context. On the episode card, you'll find some flavor text that describes the scenario and what you're doing, so you should read this to everyone at your table. Over here, you've got the rules for how to disrupt the ritual. As we just discussed, disrupting the ritual is your main goal here. You can't succeed without performing this function. Once you've disrupted the ritual, the Elder God will spawn and or become vulnerable, and then you can kill it, which is how you win the game. This one here has a special rule for when the Elder God advances, so we'll look at that when we get to the Mythos cards in more detail later on. Gameplay itself takes place in turns. Each player takes a turn in turn order, starting with the first player, in this case Elizabeth, so we'll just go back and forth between Elizabeth and Ahmed. There are no enemy turns, so it's just player turns. Each turn consists of 4 phases. Players take 3 actions, then they draw a Mythos card, then it's investigate or fight. Finally, it's end of turn, sort of cleanup and administration. We'll look at these in order, but before we get too stuck into them, let's talk about rolling dice. So as you can see, we've got 2 sets of dice here. We've got black standard dice and green bonus dice. Throughout the game, you'll be called upon to make rolls, and when you roll, you always roll all 3 black dice. But you may have some skills or abilities, or there may be something affecting the game that allows you to add bonus dice, which are the green ones, to your roll. So you'll start by assembling your dice pool for this roll. There are no limit to the number of bonus dice you may add to your roll. Dice are most commonly rolled for players attacking monsters and monsters attacking players, but you may be called upon to make a roll as part of a scenario-specific action, or maybe as part of a discovery card, or for any other reasons. Whenever you're called upon to make a roll, it follows this same basic functions. You'll see on the standard die here, there are 3 different results. There's this exclamation mark, which is called a success. There's this elder sign mark here. We've also got this tentacle here, and a blank side, which is typically nothing unless specifically referred to otherwise. It's worth noting that the bonus dice don't have any tentacles on them, but they do have 2 blank sides. So when you're called upon to make a roll, you want these, which are successes. The more of these you get, typically, the better it is. Elder signs don't do anything unless specifically indicated otherwise. So you may need a character skill in order to turn these into successes, or monster abilities may turn them into something else, but unless an effect specifically refers to the elder sign, they don't do anything at all. Same goes for the blank side, although it's very rare for the blank side to do anything other than just be blank. And the tentacles will increase your insanity, so you'll have to move 1 space up your sanity track for every tentacle that you roll. We'll talk more about insanity later. The section is listed in the description of the video, but it's very, very important. After you've assembled your dice pool, I've added a bonus die here for example, but you would only add a bonus die if you had something specifically that did so. I've got 1 success here, I've got an elder sign, I've got a tentacle, and a blank. I can always spend stress in order to re-roll a die. So Ahmed is going to spend a stress here to re-roll one of his dice. 1 stress allows me to re-roll 1 die, which I can do at any time, so long as I've got the stress to spend. Now I've got 2 successes. Once you're happy with your die roll, you resolve the results. So you'll resolve successes first, as well as any elder signs that count as successes. Then you'll resolve any sanity damage that you've taken. No matter what you're rolling for, if you roll tentacles, you will take sanity damage. So that's how you perform rolls and resolve rolls, but you might be wondering what the successes are good for. Typically, you'll be called upon to make rolls as part of those episode actions we looked at, or maybe as part of a discovery card, or most often when attacking an enemy, or when an enemy attacks you. So let's start by going through the phases of a turn in order. It starts with take 3 actions. There are 6 actions available to you in the game, 4 standard actions, and 2 episode-specific actions. The 4 standard actions are run, attack, rest, and trade. And the episode-specific actions will vary from episode to episode, and they'll be listed here on the episode card. So you may take any 3 actions, and you may take any of the actions any number of times. So the first action we're going to look at is run, which is how you move around the board. So here we've got the game board and our players here in their starting position. Now you can move around the board through any area with an entrance and an exit, which are indicated by these arrows. So you see here, we've got a connection here, so you can walk into there. There's no connection up here, so you can't cross from this room into this room. Don't judge the size of a room by the size of the space. As you can see here, this is one big room and 3 small rooms down here. When you move up to 3 rooms or spaces through these open areas. There are a few important things to note about movement. There's no penalty for moving into a space with enemies, and there is no penalty for moving out of a space with enemies. However, when you move out of a room containing enemies, they will follow you. So you can really just gather them up around you. There is no way to prevent them from following you. But if your friend moves through the room that you're in, then they will follow the friend out of the room as well. So the enemies will always follow the active player whose turn it is. Furthermore, when you leave a room containing fire, you must take a fire token and put it on your player board. Later on, during resolve end of turn effects, we're going to take some damage for every fire token on our board. The staircase here and the tunnel here count as connected entrance and exits. So you can move from this room here into this room here and back and forth. And the same if we had the tunnel tokens out, you could move through these as well. So that's movement. Let's talk about attacking. When you attack, you must pick an enemy in your space to attack. However, some characters can make ranged attacks. You'll have to check the skills on your character board in order to know whether you're able to do that. Here we can see on Elizabeth's board, she's got the marksman skill, which says you may attack a target 1 space away. So she's able to make a ranged attack. Ahmed doesn't have that skill, so he's not. So if it's Elizabeth's turn, she's the active player, and she's going to make an attack against one of these cultists, which she's able to do because of her marksman skill. So Elizabeth is going to start by picking a target. You must pick a target, and all damage will be dealt solely to that target. Any excess damage is lost. As we looked at earlier, we'll just collect all of the dice pertinent to this attack. In this case, it's just these 3 black dice, because Elizabeth doesn't have any bonus dice yet. So she'll roll these 3 dice, and she's looking for successes. When you're attacking an enemy, successes translate directly into wounds. We can see here on the Cthulhu minion card that cultists have 2 hit points, and so they require 2 damage in order to be killed. Unfortunately, we've only got 1 success. We're just going to put a wound token out by the cultist that Elizabeth was attacking. So now we've got to take 1 sanity damage. And we'll talk more about sanity in a minute. So attacking is essentially just a regular roll, and all your successes are converted into wounds on your target. Some skills allow you to attack multiple targets and spill over damage, so make sure you check your skills carefully so that you know what they do. And the next thing we're going to talk about is rest. If players want to take the rest action, they must be in a safe space. And a safe space means one without an enemy in it. So in this case, both of our characters are currently in a safe space. When you rest, you increase your stress and your health tracks by 3 spaces in any combination. So I could take back all 3 health, or I could take just 1 health and take 2 stress. So the final standard action is trade. And what we've got here are these discovery cards, and we'll be looking at how you get these in a minute, but these are typically in the form of equipment and companions. And when you trade, you can trade equipments and companions between players, and any of the players in the space can trade any number of cards between them. And this is not limited to the active player. So here we see that Elizabeth has a fire axe, so she's going to give this to Ahmed. So Ahmed's going to take this and slide it under his player board, and he can't change which side of his board the item is on. So those are the 4 standard actions. So each episode has 2 actions associated with it, and these are unique to the episode, and they're listed here on the episode card. So here we can see that there's Extinguish Fire action, where you will make a roll and remove a fire token for each success in our space. And over here we've got Destroy Equipment, which allows you to make a roll against a lab in your space, which is one of these tokens here that we put out earlier. So this will explain how that is performed. And you can do these 2 actions interchangeably as part of your 3 actions on your turn. So we've had a look at taking actions and rolling dice. We know that rolling dice will increase your insanity. So let's look at the sanity track. So this is your sanity track along the top of your player board here. Whenever you roll dice, you reveal a Mythos card maybe, or perhaps discovery cards. All of these things can increase your insanity. For each tentacle you roll, or for whatever it says on the card, you increase your insanity that number of spaces. No matter how much you receive, If you hit one of these red thresholds, you always stop. And the excess in this instance would not be applied, it would just be ignored. So when you hit a threshold, the first thing you do is resolve your Insanity card. So you can see here we've got the red threshold symbol on it to remind us. And this card has two parts to it. The first part says, keep the last Mythos card any player drew without a summoning symbol near this card until the deck is shuffled. So we'll look at Mythos cards and how they're drawn when we get to that section of this description in just a minute. But essentially, when you draw one without a summoning symbol, this player will hold on to it and then play it again when they trigger their Insanity threshold. Every single Sanity card is different, and some of them are more useful than others, but of course you will have dealt them out randomly at the start, so all I can say is good luck. Once you've resolved your Insanity card, then your character will become stronger. You can choose one of your 3 skills here to level up. Each player has 3 skills, including one unique player skill, so this skill along the top here is unique to this particular character, and these bottom 2 are more common skills. There's a pool of sort of common skills, but each character has different ones, and you might find the combination of the 2 unique. When you level up a skill, you move on your token like this to show that you're now level 2. There are, of course, 12 levels available, but you won't get to the end of the track on each one because you'll go insane before that can happen. So you've got to decide which ones you want. Some of the levels have this instead keyword, which means that the ability is fundamentally changed and this text replaces the text of the original skill. Some don't have this instead, which means that this augments the previous skill text. So Ahmed has this stealth skill, which means that when he moves, he can select one enemy that would follow him not to follow him. At level 2, he can choose up to 3 enemies during his movement that don't follow him. On level 3, each of those enemies that he's chosen suffers a wound. And on level 4, he can sneak past any number of enemies, which is, of course, very powerful. So, you'll notice that some thresholds have a bonus die depicted on them. When you hit this threshold, you can unlock that die for all rolls for the rest of the game. So now that Ahmed is up here, he'll get 1 bonus die on every roll he has to make for the rest of the game. I should warn you though, if you reach the end of the Insanity track, you are lost to madness and you are functionally as good as dead. If the Elder One hasn't spawned on the board yet, this is the end of the game for the players. So after you've taken your 3 actions, it's time to draw a Mythos card. Mythos cards are always bad, and this will always be bad for you. So upon resolving their 3 actions, the active player whose turn it is will draw a Mythos card. Mythos cards are divided up into 3 sections. The first is the Elder One summoning. So that's this symbol here. If this symbol appears on the card, then you know that this is an Elder One summoning card. The next is a special effect. And finally, at the end, summon new enemies. Once you've resolved the entirety of the card, it will of course be discarded. And you can see here some of them don't have the Elder One summoning symbol, so we'll create a separate discard pile for those cards. As we move through the game, we collect up the ones with the Elder One summoning symbols. If you do reveal a 3rd summoning symbol, then we're going to have to resolve the summoning track like I've just described. We're going to do it later in the resolve end of turn phase. Then we have to resolve this special effect. There are all kinds of special effects, and they're always bad. They usually only affect the player whose turn it is, the active player, and that player will make any necessary decisions associated with the effect. There are, in fact, 3 enemy types in the game, and special effects may refer to these 3 enemy types. They are cultists, monsters, which is anything that's not a cultist, or an Elder One. So the Elder One is the 3rd type. So these are collectively referred to as enemies, but you've got cultists, monsters, like this, and the Elder God. So this special effect here specifically refers to the cultists. And you can see here that part of the effect is that they move. So when the cultists move, they will always take the shortest possible route towards the active player. If there are 2 equidistant routes, then the active player chooses the one that the cultists will use. So once you've resolved any special effects here, you'll go on to the summoning part at the bottom. In this case, we're going to summon 2 cultists, 1 at each of these portals. You'll always start with the portal on the leftmost side, so in this case we're going to summon a cultist at the yellow portal here, and then one at the red portal. If we ever run out of cultists, then we simply don't spawn anymore. So if there was just one cultist remaining, we'd put it at the yellow portal, and then we wouldn't spawn a second cultist. All of the enemies are component limited like that, so if you can't summon one, then, well, you're probably already in trouble anyway. After you've resolved Phase 2, the Mythos card, it's time for Phase 3, Investigate and Fight. In Investigate and Fight, enemies will retaliate against you. But if you happen to be in a safe space where there are no enemies, you can investigate it, in which case you'll draw the top card of the Discovery deck and resolve it. When you resolve a Discovery card, first you read the middle section out loud for everyone at the table. So here we've got some fire equipment. Well, this should come in handy. So you can claim the fire extinguisher or the fire axe. Whichever side you choose, you'll be locked into this side for the rest of the game, and if you trade it to another player, they will have to take it on the same side. Once you've chosen a side, you simply slot it under your player board in order to lock it in to that side. You can hold any number of pieces of equipment along your player board like this. You just continue to slot the equipment in along like that. Some of these cards contain choices, and you may have to spend stress, and if you can't afford it, you obviously can't take that option. But you may get a companion like Ralph the Janitor, and they give you a special ability. In this case it says, while you have him, gain level 1 toughness. If you already have toughness on your player board, simply advance your marker 1 level on that skill. But unfortunately Elizabeth doesn't have toughness, so instead we're going to give her this toughness marker here, and she gains that ability so long as she has Ralph on her side. The thing is, she can always use Ralph as a meat shield. When she would take a wound, she can apply that wound to Ralph, which will kill him. She'll have to discard the card, but at least she'll have avoided 1 damage, which might, in a pinch, help her stay alive. Note that if your companion has more than 1 hit point, and they don't take the full amount of damage required to kill them, they can't be healed. You can't heal a companion. But, unfortunately, you might not be in a safe room. You might be in a room with enemies. So you can't investigate. Instead, you have to fight. And when you fight, really what happens is all of the enemies in the room attack you in the order of your choosing. So Elizabeth is going to be hit by both of these cultists here, and she'll have to resolve 2 cultist attacks. We're going to check the minion card here to see what those cultists do. So here we can see that the cultists don't have an applicable special ability, so that's good. They're going to roll 2 green dice. So we'll decide which one attacks first, and we'll roll the dice to see what happens. So Elizabeth has got an Elder Sign and a success. This means that she's going to take 1 wound from the success, and this Elder Sign won't have any effect unless the card says otherwise. For example, you can see here on the Baya key it says, when it attacks, each Elder Sign also counts as a success. Well, that's nasty. Fortunately, the cultists don't have that, so Elizabeth takes 1 wound. Now, if Elizabeth wants to, she can actually spend a stress in order to reroll this die here, hoping for a better result. But maybe she wants to keep her stress for the next attack, or for another time, so she decides not to modify the dice. On your turn, when you're rolling dice, you can always use stress to reroll any number of those dice, any number of times, so long as you have the stress to spend. This includes when you're rolling dice for enemies to attack you. Elizabeth chose not to reroll the die with her stress, so she takes 1 wound. If a player's ever reduced to 0 wounds, they're killed. Because these cultists only roll green bonus dice, they can't actually deal any sanity damage. But the Star Spawn rolls 3 black dice, and any tentacles that are rolled are also counted for sanity damage. Because you roll these dice, whenever you roll tentacles, you take sanity damage. So you've got to bear in mind that you've got all these attacks coming in, and you might take enough damage in order to kill you, which might end the game. So you've got to use that stress as intelligently as you can to try and mitigate the worst of it. If at any point during this fight phase, a game effect causes an enemy to enter the room, or an enemy to leave the room, so if an enemy that has already attacked is forced out the room, there's no real change. But if that enemy has not yet attacked, and they're forced out the room, then you've saved yourself 1 hit. But if an enemy enters the room, you must resolve an attack for that enemy at some point during the round, unless you can subsequently force it back out of the room. So remember, during the fight phase, if you lose all your wounds, or you go to the end of the sanity track, you're out of the game, and if you're the first player out of the game before the Elder One spawns, the game is over, the players lose. But if the Elder One is on the board, and you're wiped out, you're eliminated from the game, and you won't take any further action in it. When you're eliminated, what you do is you just discard all of your tokens and things, and then we go straight to the resolve the end of the round phase. Speaking of which, once you've resolved all the fighting, we go straight to resolve end of the round phase. There are actually 5 steps to resolve end of the round. The first step is anything that says at the end of the round, resolve this, with the exception of stuff relating to the Elder God. So any abilities, any cards you picked up, or any discovery cards you found that says resolve during the end of the round, that's the first thing that you do. The second thing that happens is fire. So any fire you collected on your character sheet, which you will have done through moving through rooms with fire on, we're going to resolve the fire now. So when you're taking fire damage, roll a number of standard dice equal to the number of tokens on your character, and then you're going to take sanity damage for every tentacle rolled, and you're going to take 1 wound for every success rolled. And then simply discard the tokens back to their area on the table. So after resolving fire, what we're going to do is do a check for 3 summoning cards. So if the card you revealed earlier showed the 3rd summoning symbol, 2 things happen. The first effect is that the Elder One will progress along the summoning track. The second thing that happens once the 3 summoning symbols appear is that we take all of the discarded cards and we shuffle them back into the Mythos deck, essentially giving it a reset. And then we're going to get on to Elder God summoning. And so the Elder God will be summoned to the game board under 2 conditions. The Elder God will be summoned if it stood in a red space here on the storyboard. So if the Elder God is stood here in this red space, it will be summoned. Note that until the ritual is disrupted, it is invulnerable. So if it's summoned to the board in this way before you've disrupted the ritual, that's very bad, because it's going to come and try and kill you, and you can't do anything about it. The second situation under which the Elder God is summoned is if you have disrupted the ritual. That immediately summons, well, that will summon the Elder God in this step. When the Elder God is summoned, we take their deck here, and we change the Stage 1 card out for the Stage 2 card, which will have instructions about where the Elder God will spawn and what they will do. But it will start by telling us where Cthulhu will spawn on the board. And then what we'll do is we'll take Cthulhu, we'll put him onto the board, and we'll take this progress token and put it into the space Cthulhu is occupying. Remember, this will continue to advance, and if it gets to the final space here, the world is devoured. We're going to take this Stage 1 card and put it next to the board. The Stage 1 card will continue to have an effect for the rest of the game. So what this means is that this will continue to advance, and every time it does so, this will still affect the game. Furthermore, now we've got this Cthulhu card here, which is Cthulhu Stage 1. There are a couple of things to note about this, which we'll look at in a minute, under Fighting the Elder God. So whether or not the Elder God is summoned in this step, once you've resolved it, you move into the last step of the resolve end of turn phase, which is resolve any end of turn Elder God stuff. So this will be stuff specifically referred to on the Elder God cards. As you can see here on the Cthulhu Stage 2 card, we've got at the end of each turn. So this takes place after the summoning step in the resolve end of turn step. Not at the start of resolve end of turn, but right at the end of it. Once you've resolved this final step in the resolve end of turn phase, then the turn is over, and you pass the play by passing the Mythos deck over to the next player, and they can begin with their take 3 actions. So the last thing we're going to talk about before we end this video is fighting the Elder God. Now, in order to fight the Elder God, the first thing you have to do is disrupt the ritual. If you haven't done that yet, you just can't deal any damage to it. You're just not allowed to target it at all. But if you have disrupted the ritual, and of course disrupting the ritual is episode specific, so in the case of Blasphemous Alchemy, we can disrupt the ritual by destroying 4 of the 5 labs, and then we've got a destroy equipment action here that allows us to do that. So once we've destroyed 4 of the 5 labs, we can start attacking Cthulhu, provided he's on the board. And once we've done that, if he's not yet spawned on the board, he will spawn on the board during the summoning step of the resolve end of turn phase of the current active player's turn. So when he spawns, we reveal the Stage 2 card, and we can start attacking him like a regular enemy. And just like an enemy, he's got a hit point value up here that we must deal damage to, and he's got an attack value here. So Cthulhu will attack with 4 dice, 2 bonus dice, 2 standard dice, and it requires 12 damage in order to kill him. Except it doesn't, because once you've dealt the 12 damage, Cthulhu will escalate to stage 3. And once you've done the stage 3, Cthulhu will escalate to the final stage, which you must defeat as well. And each phase is going to have more attack dice, and it's going to have another end of turn effect, possibly. We just don't know, which I'm not going to show you because I don't want to spoil it for you. So I'm trying to keep this as coy as I can. But when you defeat a stage, put it over here next to the storyboard with the previous stage cards, because they're all cumulative. So each stage has a set of hit points you have to defeat, but each stage will increase the attack dice. So when you get to the final stage of Cthulhu, he'll be attacking with 3 standard dice and 4 bonus dice, which is horrifying. And he'll be developing new abilities potentially each time as well. So, good luck, investigators. And that's it. If you manage to defeat that final stage of Cthulhu, then you've won the scenario. Even if there's only one of you left alive, even if you're on the brink of insanity, you immediately win the minute you defeat that final stage, and you can skip the rest of it. So, well done, investigators, you've won. So now you've got all the information you need to start investigating these otherworldly apparitions and defeating them and saving the world from devouring. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you've liked it or found it helpful, please like the video or leave a comment down below or tell your friends about it, share it with them if you all want to learn this, because you'll need friends if you're going to succeed in this game. And if you want to see how the game works in action, I'll be back tomorrow with Ollie and Chris, my friends who play with me here on the channel. So we'll be doing a gameplay series of this tomorrow, and we'll be using some of the stuff from the other boxes that came with the Kickstarter. So I hope you'll come back and join us for that, and if you're excited to see it, please do make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone!